Yo, what's going on, everybody? Today, as a loyal fan of the New York Jets NFL organization, I felt like it was slightly warranted that I at least give a response. And these are just my opinions, and I like to inform my opinions in a very specific way. And so take this with a grain of salt if you don't think I'm credible, qualified. And for those who might want to listen to what I have to say, feel free. And if you don't, click off. I'm speaking directly to Kurt Benkert right now, and I'm not here to say I'm not here for impressions, right? So I'm not here for to say give an ad hoc attack such as I have more yards in the NFL than Kurt Benkert does, because that's not the right way to go about it. And that's also not relevant because at the end of the day he made it to the NFL and a whole bunch of us didn't. So he knows something, right? So he knows something. But he gave a pretty so yesterday I woke up, it was Monday, I logged on to work. I was strolling Twitter. You know, it was going to be a good day. We had a bunch of pro days to look at. The Lakers played basketball. No March Madness yesterday, but it was still set up to be a pretty good day. I was going to watch some clips from all the pro days, everything. Then I see Jets Twitter is going off. I was like, what the hell is going on? Why is everybody freaking out? Why is everybody talking about Garrett Wilson? Maybe it was because Jake Asman released a video talking about his extension. But then I see this tweet. Sleeper Jets posted Garrett Wilson will be a top blank receiver next year or next season. And Kurt Benkert quotes it and says, 45. Garrett Wilson will be a top 45 receiver next season. And your initial reaction might be, what is he talking about? Garrett Wilson, in his first 3 seasons in the NFL, each of his first 3 seasons, he got to 1K yards. That's something that's only been done by a set few people. Jamar Chase being one of them, Michael Thomas being one of them, Odell Beckham being another one. He's in good company. There's certainly not 44 other people, receivers in the NFL who have done that, right? And that being said, he did so with the likes of Zach Wilson, Brett Rypien, Mike White, Chris Streveler, Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle. Pretty impressive. A whole bunch of different quarterbacks involved there. None of those quarterbacks in nearly as good a company, stat wise, performance wise, tape wise. What's the common denominator, though? Aaron Rodgers. Garrett Wilson happened to do with Aaron Rodgers last year, and you might say that's not that impressive. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer, and I'll get to that later. But why is Kurt Benkert, after saying how impressive it was that Garrett Wilson did that with all those other quarterbacks, he said that. He said, this is super impressive that he accomplished that with all these different quarterbacks who are not that great, and there was a revolving door of quarterbacks over the 2 years that happened. That he reached 1K yards each of those first 2 seasons, and then last year he did it again. Kurt Benkert self-admittedly said that was super impressive. He's a dog, all this stuff. And then he said Aaron Rodgers to Garrett Wilson, that connection is going to be electric. It's going to be magical. He said that. But after the season, now that we're in hindsight and it's 2020, it's there's been a switch up. So just strolling a little bit more of the posts, um, 1K yard seasons aren't what you think anymore. You need to average 58 yards a game for a 1K season. Oh, bingo. That's not that impressive, huh? That's not that impressive. Not that impressive. Let's see. 24 receivers had a 1K yard season last year. 24 receivers. Definitely is nowhere near close to 45, right? And where was Garrett Wilson? He was 14th there, 14th in receiving yards last year. It definitely doesn't seem anywhere close to 45. So then Kurt lists 1 through 32. And trust me, there's a method to this madness. I'm going to get into the whole nitty gritty stats of it all. If he can piece together to find consistency, he's top 20. Okay. So he's having him in his own honorable mention. He lists 32 receivers that apparently have pieced it together. But I feel like 1K season, 1K yard season, that's at least piecing something together. Right? Right? Let's see. Oh yeah, JMO is comparatively getting his targets vultured by other weapons on the team. Turn on the film, basically alluding to the idea that Garrett Wilson was the only target on the team, so therefore he, being the only weapon, he gets the ball all the time. He averages so many targets. He has so many targets. If anything, he's getting doubled. He's getting doubled for a lot of the game. When he's playing with Zach Wilson and they don't have anything going besides Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, no other weapons out there that are like even near close to the caliber of Garrett Wilson, he's going to get doubled. He's going to get keyed in on. That's what happens. That's what happens. And he still makes it happen to turn it into a 1K yard season. So there's two sides to the coin every single time, right? Two sides to the coin every single time. Let's see. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, all in the same category for me. Drafted 11th, 10th, and 6th overall in their draft. So, there's some backpedaling going on, I feel like. Had high hopes for Garrett Wilson this season. Rewatching the film was extremely disappointing. Falling down, wrong routes, etc. just wasn't what you expect out of a top 10 player of his position. His highs were exciting, but the other stuff was tough. Now you're comparing him to top 10. So there's quite a bit of backpedaling going on. Quite a bit. Because originally it was 45th, now it's 30s to 40s. Then he could be top 20s if he finds consistency. Now you're comparing him to top 10. Quite a bit going on. Let's get into the stats of it all, why don't we? Let's take that off a little bit. So Garrett Wilson received a PFF receiving grade of 79.3. 23rd amongst 98 receivers. Okay, yeah. Still nowhere near close to the 45 number you originally cited. 5th in receptions. 11th in receiving yards, like I said. 3rd in targets. So let's talk about this targets tidbit right here, right? I feel like this is extremely important because, like I said, there's always two sides of the coin. So Garrett Wilson, over the course of the first two seasons, was seeing himself be basically the only target out there. And then for the majority of this season, outside of Rodgers' best friend, Allen Lazard, he was the only target. And then Davante Adams comes to town, and suddenly Garrett Wilson starts to get looked off. You see clips of, and you want to talk about tape, watch the tape and see that Aaron Rodgers looks off Garrett Wilson so many times to force feed it to Davante Adams. Let's talk about that. But you say, oh, he still gets so many targets. He's 3rd amongst 98 receivers in targets. That's fair. That's fair. That's a fair point. And we're going to talk about that. But look at the usage. Garrett Wilson is doing all this, meanwhile, playing the X, Y, or the Z. He plays in the slot. He plays out wide, both sides. He is used in so many different areas of the field. How many receivers can you say that about? I mean, you can say that about Justin Jefferson. But, any receiver that you name in which that is part of the conversation en route to a 1K yards type of season every single season with the type of quarterback play that you're having while being used all over the field, you'll notice that you're starting to talk about not top 45. You're starting to talk about a little bit higher than that. At least top 20, I feel like. Now let's look at the stats. I mean, we've already looked at all this, blah blah blah. Yards, receptions, targets. Let's inform that a little bit more. Let's inform that just a little bit more by going to the advanced receiving stats. So yeah, of course, you're going to see Garrett Wilson 5th in targets at 154. Okay. And you're going to say, what does he do with those targets? He's only getting 1K yards or 1,100 yards rather, and he's got so many drops. The Jets have so many drops. They ruined Aaron Rodgers' career last year because they're getting rid of him because the Jets had so many drops. He had 7 drops. He had 7 drops personally he was responsible for. What's his drop percentage? Because you see 7 drops and say that's a lot. His drop percentage in comparison to how many targets he has. So this is direct answer to the whole targets argument. Any argument related to how many targets he had, you have to look at his drop percentage because it is directly a function of that number compared to the drops. So even though he had 7 drops, he was still well below league average in terms of drop percentage, 4.5%, 4.5% drop percentage. Well below Josh Downs, who apparently, according to Kurt Benkert, is rated above Garrett Wilson. Well below so many guys here. His drop percentage is well below league average. So let's stop talking about that right now. Let's stop talking about drops and let's stop talking about targets. Let's talk about an even more interesting advanced stat. And you might say, stop throwing stats at us. It's dumb. But I'm just using stats to inform my opinion because I watched every single Jets game last year. Every single one. Every single snap of football I watched. Personally. And I use this to inform what I saw via eye test on the game film. I use this I form a viewpoint by watching the game. Then I use this to inform that viewpoint. And I believe that Garrett Wilson is an elite receiver. With the right quarterback play, he can actually be amazing. He can fully break out. We haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Garrett Wilson. That's my opinion. And I'm informing this opinion by saying, let's look at these two right here. These two right here. Okay? Interceptions on passes where targeted. Interceptions on passes where targeted. Okay? Where is Garrett Wilson here? 8th. He had the 8th most interceptions on passes where targeted. And you might say, hey, that just means he was bobbling the ball a ton. Yeah, he was bobbling the ball. He couldn't catch it. Through an interception. He was running the wrong routes. Terrible. That's why Aaron Rodgers threw so many interceptions his way when he targeted passes towards him. So we're going to blame it on Garrett Wilson. Before you do that, let's inform that by looking to the next advanced stat, passer rating on passes when targeted. 25 targets per 16 game pace required for leaderboards. Passer rating on passes when targeted. So, passer rating on passes when targeted. Where's Garrett Wilson? Where is Garrett Wilson? Somewhere around here, somewhere. Oh, there he is. Passer rating on passes when targeted. So we're talking now. We're not talking about targets. We're talking about mistakes that were made when thrown towards him. 5 interceptions, 8th in the league. And it's not his fault either. We've now proven that because the passer rating on passes when targeted towards Garrett Wilson's direction was 88.2. Is that a good passer rating? Do any of y'all think so? In fact, he was 130th in the league. So, got you right there. What's your answer to that? What's your answer to that? Are you going to blame it on his drops? Because we already showed that his drop percentage is well below league average. Are you going to blame it on this and that? He always falls down. It's like so. No, we're talking now about the quality of passes that are thrown to Garrett Wilson's direction when he's targeted. The quality of those passes. And this shows that quality is very, very far from being good. When Garrett Wilson was targeted, probably because, mid-season, somewhere down the line, Garrett Wilson stopped being the go-to option and started being the secondary option. He was looked off. Devontae Adams, even when he couldn't force feed it to Devontae Adams, he looks Garrett Wilson's way. He throws the ball. Garrett Wilson targeted, terrible pass. 88.2 passer rating when thrown to Garrett Wilson. And that, for me, ends the discussion right there. Because it's no longer all Garrett Wilson's fault. It proves there's something wrong with what the passer is doing. I don't know. That's just my opinion. And I just had to talk about it. Let me know what y'all thought in the comments. And, drop a like if you enjoyed. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Again, it's okay to agree or disagree with me. I just feel like when you have a platform, which I don't really, but when you do have a platform, you need to be very careful because it has an effect on the color of how people think when it comes to social media, especially mainstream media. How they think and act towards different players. That's all for me. Peace.